All right. Welcome to DisrupTV. And of course, this is the green room where we actually do introductions of our guests. We have a special co-host, Liz Miller. Welcome. And of course, our amazing producer.
Super Vala.
Super Vala? Super Vala. Ooh, look at the effects.
Yeah.
And of course, we've got
my
our producer.
Apple effects are everywhere. I'm sorry.
I noticed. That is
Happy
like
to volley.
the easiest thing. So, but we are here talking to two amazing guests, and we covered they are nerds, but we'll explain that in a later program. Suneel, where are you coming in from? What are we talking about today? And that is an amazing mic.
Oh, hey, thanks. Just trying to keep up with you, Ray. I am coming to you from Santa Monica. We're going to talk about what you want to talk about, you and Liz. But, you know, I just put out a book called Everyday Dharma, and I'm happy to get into that with you.
Look, I'm looking forward to being confident, creative, and caring. So
Awesome.
very, very cool.
Love it.
Sonny, where are you coming from? What are we talking about?
Yeah, hey, great to be here. I'm San Francisco, California, and I'm here to talk about all things crypto, which is never a dull topic.
Never a dull topic, and we'll figure out what you came in on BTC. We'll talk more about that later. So very cool. Well, with that, hey, we're going to turn it back to you, Elle. We'll kick off the show, and then we'll see you on the other side. So go ahead.
All right, 3, 2, 1.
Hey, everybody. Welcome to Disrupt TV. I'm here with my amazing co-host, Liz Miller, who does all things CX and more. And of course, I'm Ray Wang with Constellation Research. Disrupt TV is our weekly podcast that I normally host with Vala Afshar. We are 11 a.m. Pacific, 2 p.m. every Friday, and we get A-list guests, latest enterprise news, hot startups, insights from influencers, and much more. Please follow us on Disrupt TV and, of course, on Twitter or X at Disrupt TV Show. With that, we've got an amazing guest to kick it off today. Liz, it's Sonny Singh, co-founder and
What's
CEO
up, Sonny?
How you doing? Great to connect.
We're so happy to have
Great
you
to
here
have you.
because it's one of our favorite topics, and Vala is going to be so jealous given our little secret interest.
We're right in time for Thanksgiving conversation, right?
It is, and I may see you later this Thanksgiving.
Yes, that's good.
Sonny is a well-known advocate for crypto since he joined BitPay in 2014 as its chief commercial officer. And of course, he's at Beluga. BitPay has processed over 5 billion crypto payments and raised over 70 million in top venture firms, including Index Ventures and Founders Farm. You actually got crypto to be used in places like Microsoft, AT&T, Newegg, WeWork, and thousands of other merchants, especially my Bitcoin ATM, accepting crypto payments. And of course, Sonny's a frequent guest on Bloomberg and CNBC and has spoken at tons of crypto and fintech conferences around the world. But in your capacity here, co-founder and CEO of Beluga, we're super excited to have you here. And of course, more than welcome to be on the show anytime. So welcome.
Thank you very much. Thanks, guys. Great to be here.
Sonny, I gotta ask you. I'm gonna just jump in, Ray. I'm sorry, because I'm so curious about when it comes to crypto, because it's like half the time crypto is that thing that my husband is like, I hope you don't mind, but we're mining things. I'm like, I don't know what that. Okay, it's like they're elves. Okay, cool. But then a lot of people will be like, oh, I'm in crypto. It kind of feels like 2000, like I'm in the internet. And you're like, it's like the same kind of vibe. So I've got to ask you. I would love to know more about your background and how you got into crypto.
Yeah, it's a great question. It was a lot of wrong turns, to be honest with you. No.
No. Don't tell us that. Don't tell us that.
So I've actually been in Silicon Valley for about 20 years, founder, operator, advisor in many companies. And in 2010, actually, I was involved with a fintech company that's backed by Andreessen Horowitz. And so Coinbase had just started, crypto had just started off a little bit. And when I was leaving the company, the team at Andreessen said, hey, we want you to stay in the family. We backed a company called Coinbase. Why don't you go join them? And I was like, yeah, I don't want to be in crypto. This is a new thing. I'm not interested. And it was 2013, 2014. So I've been one of the first employees at Coinbase. I'm like, yeah, no interest. And then crypto started taking off a little bit. And I started seeing all the news around that. I started looking into it more. And then the team at Index Ventures and Felicis came to me and said, hey, BitPay is a great company. You should go look to join them.
Yep.
And I still wasn't really that interested. And they kept talking to me more about it and why this is a great idea. You should go do it. The price of Bitcoin was $1,000. It was going to $2,000. So I joined. BitPay was the largest crypto company in the world in that time in 2014. It wasn't even crypto. It was just Bitcoin. They called it Bitcoin back in those days. And I was like, great, this is great. I promptly joined. The price of Bitcoin crashed to $200. It was nuclear winter for 2 years, crypto winter for 2 years, actually. It was doom and gloom. But then I just stuck it out. And then 8 years later, it turned into something really exciting, actually. But I was one of the few, I was the first fintech executive to cross over from fintech to crypto. So it was a big deal.
Interesting.
Yeah, no one had done that before. In those days, it was only BitPay, Coinbase, Circle, Ripple, and like blockchain.com, kind of the only real companies that were out there. And so all those founders couldn't understand why everyone wasn't using crypto yet, because they're very technology focused. And I was the only one who came and said, well, what do I use Bitcoin for? What am I doing with this? Why am I? And I kind of asked those questions because of that. I was kind of the front person speaking at all the conferences, panels, Bloomberg, CNBC, because I could relate to the crowd, because I'm like, these use cases you have, no one's going to use it for that. And really try to figure out what people would use Bitcoin for and all that kind of stuff. So that's kind of my job for the last 9 years, is trying to educate and bring it to people like the mainstream who couldn't quite figure out how it was working before, because it's very technical focused, very hard for the product experience. And we're still not there yet. And we still have a lot of room to go.
Yeah, we're definitely seeing that. And if you think about like that shift that's been going on, right? I mean, it's just finding the right use cases, finding the right product market fit. Like, how do we get this there? And that intersection between where crypto's sitting and where Web3 is happening, that's a very, very exciting area, right? We see that as one of the big trends. But a lot of people think crypto's dead, like it's not happening, it's not moving. What are the trends that you're seeing in this marketplace? And you and I, we all hold some version. We won't say how much of this stuff, or we lost how much of this stuff to think when you started. So
yeah, no, and I think crypto obviously went through its downturn last year, right? It was pretty down in the media and all that stuff, and now you're slowly seeing it come back. The price of Bitcoin's up 2x this year, let's say, right?
Yep.
Again, it shouldn't be dependent on the price of how big crypto is doing, right? It should be about the ecosystem, number of developers, number of activities. Like in 3 years ago, every one of my friends was leaving Google, Facebook to go start crypto companies, right? And now they're all leaving and starting AI companies, right? And the VCs have pivoted from crypto to AI. So if any time crypto was to die, it would have been this year, with all the bad things that have happened. And yet crypto is still moving strong. And everyone's kind of getting ready for next year. And that's really what's happening. And you might have a perfect storm next year, in that you could have the Bitcoin halving is happening in April of next year.
Yep.
You could have the ETF being approved.
ETF. Yep.
You think will happen. And you could have also lower interest rates and a better economy next year. And if all those things happen, you could see the price of Bitcoin, which I think will happen, catapult to break the all-time high of 69,000, but also touch $100,000. And if that happens, you'll see Bitcoin become, $1.5 trillion currency. The whole industry become a $3 trillion ecosystem again. You will see much more hype and marketing around that stuff. But in the meantime, you're seeing great companies already working on products in Web3 games, in staking, in lending. All right, NFT projects are not dead yet, right? So there's a lot of stuff happening, even though you're not seeing that in the media. There's a lot of big companies that have, teams spun out of Activision that raised funding to build Web3 games now. Professional teams are working on projects that will eventually hit somewhere.
So wait, real quickly, before we get to some other areas, I want to talk about decentralized exchanges, because that's an area you guys talk about in finding investments, or people are looking at it. Like, is there a space for that? Are we going to be a ton of exchanges? Are you seeing consolidation in the decentralized exchange market?
So the centralized exchanges are like Coinbase and Gemma and the ones we know and all that, right?
Yep.
And those are, those, depending on where you're based, have regulatory issues and all that kind of stuff, right? Then there's a lot of decentralized exchanges that have popped up all over in the last 5 years. And they still have to fight the regulatory issues, right? And, they're saying, hey, we're decentralized. We don't need to worry about American government rules and all that kind of stuff. And the U.S. government, SEC, is saying, no, you do actually have to worry about that. That's still an ongoing battle. But actually, you're seeing, if the U.S. government does block it, they would just go offshore anyways. But you're seeing that decentralized exchanges are popping up all over. And that's really where people think things like DeFi and all that are really going to be the future of crypto, actually.
Yeah.
So I don't
Yeah.
think that's being put back in the box, so to speak.
Yeah, how else will three-letter agencies move money around? I'm just
Exactly.
Womp womp. Speaking of 3 letters, and you did kind of open the door, Sonny. You said like crypto kind of went through a little bad press over the past, year or so. But you got some. I need you to spill the tea, Sonny. We're gonna have a little spill the tea moment. You and I. You actually were an investor in FTX. So this is something that you saw, this is something that you saw not only, or maybe didn't, or maybe it was hidden from you. Like, I don't know. Like, that's why I got to know what happened. And I guess why I'm asking is because I think that everything that did happen with FTX, with trials, and everything, it was so public and it was so salacious. And it was like these big, National Enquirer style headlines, but it really did take a lot of people who are starting to ramp up to start to want to understand what crypto is, why they should be involved in it, why it is this something that they shouldn't just discount as monopoly money. And all of a sudden the interest, from the mass populace just was like, boom, because it's unstable and it did all this and there's this terrible guy and oh my God. So how did you know about FTX? Tell us what happened there and kind of where you are now. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, and rightfully so, all those issues that people saw. The crypto industry has a great history of going 2 steps forward, 1 step back, right? We're great at doing that. Every time we make a little progress, we somehow shoot ourselves in the foot, right? And so, FTX and SBF came on as a white knight for the regulators and all that kind of stuff. And he was, they were moving very fast on things, right? So I spent a lot of time with them, year and a half ago or whatever. They were trying to learn about crypto payments. So I was working with their team on how the payments flow worked of crypto payments and things like that while I was at BitPay, and spent a lot of time with them. And then we kind of became good friends. They asked me to invest in the round. And I looked at their investor deck and all that kind of stuff. It was pretty funny because they literally went from 0 revenue to $1 billion in profit in a year and a half, which was insane, right? And no one had ever seen those numbers before, right? And so the funny thing was there was a couple, red flags. Like Sequoia was investing the same time I was investing, everyone else. And there was a couple investors who raised the red flag saying there's no board members.
Yeah.
And Sam said, well, we're not going to have any board members. He goes, if we do, we're going to bring in Elon Musk and Jack Dorsey. So that was a big issue for some investors. The other investors raised a red flag on what is the relationship with Alameda Research? And they said, oh, completely separate, nothing to do with us and all that.
Oh.
And the reason why they asked that, though, was for a different reason. They wanted the FTT tokens that they had, the FTX tokens. Those are worth a lot of money. And the Solana tokens are worth a lot of money.
Yep.
And that was not part of this deal, actually. You were investing in FTX, not Alameda. And they're like, I want Alameda part of this too. And so there were some issues around that. And the other really funny thing was it was strikingly how young everyone was at the company. They were all literally 26, 27-year-olds. And not that this was a good or bad thing, but none of them were bankers from Goldman Sachs who went to Harvard Business School. They were just random tech kids who are now all of a sudden, they were running the fundraising process too, which was very odd, I thought, right? And so that was interesting too, that the guys that were raising the money had never raised money before. But again, all they do is send you this deck. It was 5 pages. It was a very short deck, but it was worth, the revenue was so amazing. How could you not say yes to that, right? And again, the FTX numbers that we all invested in were all great. There was no fraud there. The fraud was there. Alameda was taking the money out of FTX. So FTX business was actually unbelievable, right? And at least that's what I tell my wife every day since I lost some money and justify why I made that investment, and what was going on with that.
Why is this on People Magazine? Right.
Yeah, so that was the other thing. And then the other funny thing was, I'm friends. I actually saw one of my friends a couple weeks ago at a conference who used to work at FTX, right? And literally, Sam had his 3 people that, they're all best friends. But the rest of the company was just working hard. And they were hardworking people that didn't have any idea what was happening.
No, they were very innocent. They didn't know what was going on.
Yeah. And also, when you meet the team there, you hear all the stories of parties, a penthouse, all that stuff. When you actually meet them in person, there's no partying. There's nothing at all.
It was 3 people in a penthouse and everybody else was on their computers playing.
Yeah. And they're in the penthouse because they're in the penthouse so they're socially awkward and they want to hang out with other people, actually. Not because they're having a really good fun time. They're playing Dungeons and Dragons, things like that, actually. So it's a very different mindset and how they work. So when you hear the story about these great, it's not it's not a funding that way as far as partying. But it was definitely an interesting time. It's a shame what happened because they were fun to work with because they were always willing to try new things and be aggressive and all that, obviously. But obviously that came back to bite them all, obviously.
Wow. That's great.
The one funny thing is they actually sent me a certificate, which I got in the mail like FedEx, saying you're a shareholder in FTX. Normally when you invest in angel company, Ray, you probably invest in a lot of tech companies.
Yeah.
You very seldom get a physical certificate.
You actually get the physical certificate.
Yeah, you never get that.
Oh my God, that's the cutest thing I've ever heard. It's
Yeah,
like when you buy like a baby a share of Disney. Like that's what they sent you.
I meant an NFT maybe or something like that.
Hey,
That's the cutest.
And
you're like, I can't do anything with it now. Like you could auction that in like 5 years. It'll that will get you your money back.
Worth more than
plan. Right. Tell your wife we've got a plan. Born here on DisrupTV.
Yeah. And the other great part is that you're seeing like people are getting 50 cents back on the dollar, 30 cents back. And I'm like, they send me all the emails, and I'm like, oh, can I get that too? And they're like, oh no, you're an investor, you get $0 back. I'm like, oh, okay, all right.
You're an investor, you don't make money.
I get $0 back.
You're not here to make money. You just got a certificate. You stop
that's
it.
Like, I got my certificate, nothing else. So that's it.
Wow.
So luckily, all the other guys that were part of the team have all went on to normal jobs because they weren't at fault. They had literally no idea.
No, everybody knows that. Yeah. They know they were all there. But the question for you is like, this is all happening, right? You're at BitPay. You've done all this kind of stuff. And then you go form Beluga. What is Beluga?
So great question. So Beluga is actually
in the middle of the worst funding environment for crypto. You're starting this startup. I'm like, what?
That was a harder move. And actually, FTX had said they want to be an investor. So that was kind of a great idea. I'm like, oh, well, no, invest. It'll be great. And then luckily that didn't work out. But no,
I'll take naming rights for stadiums for 400.
I'll take
the idea behind Beluga was exactly as we talked about, right? Is helping people understand crypto, so to speak, right? Think of us as like Credit Karma or NerdWallet for crypto, right? Excellent. So when you want to figure out what credit card or home loan or auto loan to get, you go to NerdWallet and they compare and explain it to you and you sign up for one of them, right? In crypto, instead of credit cards, home loans, auto loans, it's NFT projects, tokens, Web3 games, DeFi, things like that, actually, right? So very simple, very easy. And the name Beluga comes from, in crypto, everyone wants to be a whale.
Yep.
Belugas are the smartest whales out there. So we want you to become a smart crypto whale. Yep. So we're making everything very easy for people to onboard into crypto. But more importantly, for people that already have crypto. So there's 400 million people that have crypto in the world, and probably like 10% of them, a small amount, are actually really power users. The rest just buy and hold, and they're stuck having it in Coinbase, and they Google, how do I play a Web3 game, end up in Reddit and get scared away. We want to take those people that have actually jumped in the water, made the plunge to buy crypto, to actually figure out how to use it now. It's not just buy and hold anymore. It's stake, play, earn, lend, use, right? And we want to start getting people to understand how to do that.
Don't know staking. We'll get there later, but it's very, very important. So
that was the plan behind it, right? And it's pretty funny because when you meet all the traditional VCs and what we're doing, they're like, "Oh, we get what Credit Karma and NerdWallet do. That's, no brainer. Obviously, we just can't believe no one's done this yet in crypto for $1 trillion industry."
But Sonny, you got a stellar list of investors. Right. If I remember, it's like Charlie Lee at Litecoin, Mike at, Coinbase, Brandon that was doing Kraken, Howard at Stockwitz, Jim at RPE. I mean, you got MoonPay too, if I remember, like Akash at MoonPay, the CTO.
Yep.
These are real folks, right? I mean, and Suneel at blockchain.com. I mean, like these are serious. These aren't like flying the pants. Like, we're not sitting in the middle of Art Basel and coming up with crap. I mean, like, it's real.
Well, and that was the plan was, we wanted to show that we're backed by the executives, all the top executives from the leading crypto companies, right? Because there is a problem, right? And every 3 years, crypto crashes. And why is it crash? Because no one's actually using any of these products yet. Every Web3 game is launched and there's very few users right now. And as long as the price is high, everyone's happy. Well, the price won't stay high if there's no fundamental usage behind it.
And the volume is not there. The volume and the transaction volume is not there. And you're right. You're bringing trust back into the system here.
Yep. So we're bringing trust. So all the executives. So, Charlie Lee is the founder of Litecoin. We got executives from Coinbase, Kraken, MoonPay, Ripple, etc. And then we got a lot of crypto VCs investing behind us too as well. But then we got a non-crypto VC to lead our round, which is very important because to get that during crypto winter in Silicon Valley to get $1 billion fintech fund called Fin Capital to lead the round was pretty remarkable. We really wanted to do that to build up the trust and credibility that what we're trying to do, that this idea worked for Web 2, which is Credit Karma NerdWallet, and we'll just bring it to Web 3, and it'll be a lot. And Credit Karma sold for $8 billion a couple of years ago.
Yeah, I'm going to interrupt quote Liz, but why not be in Dubai? That's where the center is. Like the Valley has no idea what crypto is. It never got it. It never understood it. It's still trying to figure it out. And it's like, thank God we're rid of it. Hey, check out AI.
It's still trying to figure out blockchain, let alone crypto. They're all like, blockchain
got it. Like New York got it. Like New York got crypto. London got crypto. Dubai is the center of all the Web3 action here. So.
No, you're absolutely right. But I still believe that Silicon Valley is the hub, even though it's not for crypto quite yet. But I believe all the best Web3 games, all the best engineers are in Silicon Valley. Plus, I have 3 little kids, and I don't think they wanted to move to Dubai. But for what we're doing, again, we can be based here. But if we had a token, things like that, we'd have to be offshore too, and we don't have that kind of stuff. But it's definitely a regulatory issue we have to deal with and all that. And that's why our site, we can get regular bank accounts and all that in America because we're actually, we're crypto adjacent, so to speak. We're not trading tokens ourselves and all that. So it's much different for what we're trying to do.
Well, if you make your way to Dubai, make sure it comes with like 3 spots at Dune Crest America. And that seems to be where we're at.
There you go.
But here, I guess this is, okay. So if I take this, I feel like I'm crypto adjacent because my husband's much more into crypto and like I'm in it from a technology perspective and because like all of my colleagues talk about it. So like, I better figure this stuff out. But for someone like me, right, who's like, okay, this sounds interesting. Let me go figure this out. Let me kind of try to figure out where I fit in all of this, which I think is where a lot of people I talk to are when it comes to crypto. Like, I'm not in that group of like, it sounds too crazy. I'm not going to do this. This sounds like something really solid, but we get nervous, right? Because there's a lot of whispering, if not yelling around regulatory issues, especially in the US. There are the horror stories of like, I lost my wallet and lost $1 billion. Like there's all these conversations. So when it comes to like predictions for, I would guess 2 groups, folks like Ray who are like, yes, let me show you all of my wallets. And then people like me who are like, I don't know where the wallet is. What are you predicting? Like from price, from where we need to be, from where the market is going? What would you tell someone like me who maybe one day wants to be like someone like Ray?
Right. So I would say our site is perfect for you, Liz, right? Because you're going to come in with a little bit of interest, right? And then we can get you up with a starter backpack of wallets and tokens if you want, whatever you want. Right? We'll walk you through. Like, here's how you get a wallet. Here's how you stake it. Here's how you play Web3 game. Here's the sites to use. And we recommend kind of the best sites for each one for you to use, right? Versus you trying to go on your own and figure out on your own and go to Reddit and things like that. Because again, if you choose the wrong site, you could get your money taken away from you, right? There's so much fraud in crypto, right? So we want to vet out all the right partners, vet out all the right products and all that, and show you and walk you through this crypto journey to get you from where you are now to become like Ray.
Ray's now terrified at the idea of Liz becoming like Ray. We need to have that documented someplace that everyone's like, oh God, please don't let that happen. But I think it's really interesting because I think, Sonny, so much of that is like, there's the how to get started, but I also think there's the, like, is it like a Ron Popeil chicken machine? Do I just set it and forget it? Like, do I just get to sit here and be like, well, then Sonny's going to tell me what the price is. It's going to be $1 billion and I'm going to be rich.
No. The idea is that you set, because the idea is we don't want you just to buy and hold it and let the price go up. We want you to actually use it for things. There's actually things you can use crypto for. Yep. That's really,
that's the piece.
It's not just to make a lot of money and have the price go up, because again, there's 5,000 other tokens, right? So maybe Bitcoin you want to just store and hold as a part of your asset portfolio, which is fine. But then what are you going to use Solana and all these other tokens for, right? And those are meant to play games, do the other fun things that are happening. Every new crypto products are launching every day. There's crypto credit cards, right? There's things like that. There's crypto loans.
You can buy a car with crypto.
Yeah, you can do a lot of them. You can spend it, right?
The problem is the whales and apes are just holding and they're not spending and there's no transactions. And that's really the issue, right? Because there's no transaction flow and that's the volume issue.
Yep. And so the more people we can get on board, who get on board the right way, though, who don't just buy it and hold it and say, it's not going up, what's going on? I want my money back. If you actually get into it to play a game or to do something else with it, you don't necessarily care about the price. You're actually using it more. And I'd rather have a lot more users than just one big whale sitting around doing nothing with it, right? That's very important for the industry.
Or those darn apes that are doing nothing with it.
And then
too.
there's NFTs, right? So should I go buy an NFT? Well, are you trying to buy it because it looks good on your wall, or you just want to make money on it, right?
No, I want the exclusive access to the Amman Hotel in New York. I mean, what are you talking about? That's really what this game is.
I want the first Dorito.
Yes.
I don't know anything about the party scene.
So all the brands now, like, Doritos, Budweiser, Adidas, Nike, etc., they're all trying to do NFTs and projects, right? But you as a user saying, which one should I go with? How do I use it? What am I really doing it? And that's what we're trying to help people with, right? To get, again, onboard new users in the crypto and to help the current existing users do more with their crypto. That's really what the sweet spot is. And if we do that right, again, Capital One and Wells Fargo aren't teaching people how to use credit cards really, or what credit cards. They say, go to Credit Karma and they'll explain everything for you. And then they can sign up for a credit card that way. So same thing we're trying to do, right?
Yeah.
Very interesting.
Okay. So real quick, regulation. Everybody hates that word, but we need it at some point. I'm a free market capitalist. What is the right level of regulation so that we can all play fairly? Right.
Yeah. So again, at BitPay, and BitPay was a payments company, and I was there in 2014 when it was really the wild, wild west, right? And they are the regulators. They had the New York Bit license, and the BitPay was one of the first companies to get the New York Bit license. So that was a great thing. And I guess California is trying to do the same thing now. Believe it or not, the crypto companies want regulations. Okay, because then it takes us out of the gray area.
And then everyone in the gray area. I agree.
And then everyone can start using us, right? So that's why the ETF comes out. It takes it out of the shadows into the real area. Because a lot at BitPay, work with big merchants like Microsoft and AT&T, and they'd ask us, "Is it legal?" And like, well, it's show me the rule. Or it says, and some people might not want to work with you then if it's not 100%. If it doesn't say crystal clear that this is legal to use crypto as a payment option, all that kind of stuff, it's hard to get customers sometimes that way. If the government, no matter how onerous they make it is, which is worse, that's why we signed up for BitLicense. It was very onerous, but it puts it out of the gray area that we're now licensed to operate in New York City, New York, which is great. If we can do that in America, not do it per state, it'd make life a lot easier. And I think the government knows that. And I think the government knows that right now. And I don't think the government's trying to ban Bitcoin or crypto. They're just trying to figure out what is that happy medium spot. And of course, the government can't agree on anything is a problem, right? And that's
there's some fear in the devaluation of the dollar, right? They're worried about that, right? Because that's really what they have, or what might happen as a reserve currency. So, but the country-backed cryptos might, CBCs are actually going to play a role. So.
Yeah, CBC, but again, those things all take a long time. I always have a
saying. You don't have time to wait.
nothing happens fast in fintech, right? And that's kind of. And especially involving government-issued coins. I mean, this is a long process.
Except for Spooch. Nothing happens fast in the fintech. So, okay. Well, this is great. We got Sonny Singh, co-founder and CEO of Beluga. Thank you so much for being on the show, giving us the update on really where crypto is happening. What is the next crypto event you're going to be at?
Probably
Satoshi?
Maybe it's Satoshi Roundtable. I'm not sure yet. Actually, I just got back from our team member was at the Solana Breakpoint conference in Amsterdam.
Yes, I heard that was great.
Yeah, I'm a little too old now. I kind of stay behind the scenes now with the young kids go to all these different conferences every week now. I just go to the one or two of the big ones, and that's kind of it. But next year,
now that you're promising Dungeon and Dragon parties in pet houses as part of crypto,
man, I got to bring my 10-sided dice. I'll be bringing my own 10-sided dice. So.
Yeah. Right, I have no idea what you're talking about, Sonny. This sounds like a great industry conference to
there you go. Well, that's
get on these lists.
And next year, when Bitcoin hits 100,000, you heard it here first on the prediction, right? So you can we'll come back and celebrate then. Okay, we'll play some Dungeons and Dragons, but it'll be a lot of fun in the industry.
Warcraft. We're just gonna get it done.
It's awesome. Hey, Sonny, thanks for being on the show. Happy Friday, and look forward to catching up with you. I'll see you next week.
Thanks very much. Take care.
Bye
bye.
Wow, super interesting. Because I don't know. I'm like I don't. Do I have a Bitcoin? Is it $1 billion? Because that okay.
I don't know.
Suneel, do you have any Bitcoin? Do you have a Bitcoin that's $1 billion?
I do, but I have to say, hearing Sonny speak makes me think I'm way behind right now. He's talking about those 400 power users.
Beluga.com.
Right? He was talking about those 400 power users. I'm definitely in the other camp.
Yeah. Yeah, you're at 401. Yeah.
Yeah.
We'll have to get all of us together. I'll leave. If any of you are checking the chat, check out my. I'll leave you a number to text me. Suneel, I think what's really important is we have to get to everyday Dharma if we're going to be in this Bitcoin world. It's crazy.
Yeah.
So
we're going to need both.
Look
at
that. He's the author of Everyday Dharma: 8 Essential Practices for Finding Success and Joy, and Everything You Do. So. Yeah, so do a quick intro. Suneel lost his Dharma and then discovered it again. We'll have to help out what Dharma is. Not everyone knows what Dharma is, but as an author and visiting scholar at Harvard Medical School, Suneel studies the most extraordinary people on the planet to discover and share simple, actionable habits to lift our performance and deepen our daily sense of purpose. His work has been featured on major outlets, including CNBC, the TED Talk you got to check out, and New York Times. Here's a trailer for season 2. We got to check that out at some point. We should play that. I don't think we can do that here, but you can follow him on Twitter or X at Suneel, Suneel. Definitely an early adopter of Twitter. So welcome to the show.
Hey, Ray, Liz, nice to be here.
Oh, it's so great to have you, and thanks for taking the time. Okay, I'm gonna start with a confession. So when Ray just said, "Hey, there are probably a lot of people out there that don't know what Dharma is."
Yeah. But let me ask you this.
So
Liz.
let's start there. I'm gonna
Yeah.
start there.
Let's start there. And by the way, Liz, I have a question for you. Have you
Yeah.
heard the word Dharma before?
I have,
Okay,
but
yeah.
like in a lot of different contexts, right?
Exactly.
Like as a project, like as or you kind of hear it in passing, but I'll be very honest, I haven't necessarily had it grounded either in like where the word has come from or
Yep.
where it's relevant today.
Yep. Yeah. I mean,
It's a reality field. Think about it that way. No, it's good.
right. And look, even like as like an Indian American who kind of grew up around the word Dharma, I got confused about what it is because I hear it in so many different contexts, right? I mean, you hear
Yeah.
Dharma talked about from Buddhist monasteries to Burning Man camps. So, the way that I think about Dharma is that it is your essence. It's this thing inside of you that really wants to express itself. Like it's very clear to me that Sonny, just even listening to him speak, there's something very connected to him about crypto, right? And he is expressing that into the world. And that's the key, is that when you're expressing your essence, you come alive in a brand new way. You feel confident, you feel creative, you feel caring. And when you don't, you can feel lost and you can feel depleted. And I think, look, it's no sort of insight that so many people are feeling that way right now, right? I mean, over half of us are actively disengaged with what we do each day. Over 80% of us are in active search for what we're going to be doing next. We're talking about people in the workforce right now. The number one predictor right now of your mental health for most American workers is your job, is what you do each day. And yet the vast majority of us aren't enjoying what we're doing. So I think it's been this reset moment, I think, for so many people. And, while I think the tendency is always to look for like, what's the cutting edge technique? What's new? There's also a lot of wisdom that is in the past. We can look back in order to look forward. Dharma is this practice that's been passed down by generations for thousands of years, from east to west, from ancient to modern. And the goal of this book was really to take this practice that has worked for so many people, including great leaders that have been all over the world, that have changed things around them, and to break down what their habits were into very specific things that you can put into practice right now.
Wow. Start with that.
Interesting.
Yeah. I mean, when you think about this and the habits that are there, one of the areas that you talk about is, work, right? What's the difference between the future of work and what you call the future of worth? Which is a very interesting distinction.
Ooh, there's a difference.
Yeah. And it's interesting for us to be having this conversation, right? Because we all have roots in Silicon Valley. I got my start as a founder of a tech startup called Rise, which was a healthcare company, and we sold that. It's now owned by Amazon. So future of work has been sort of our obsession, right? But there is something that I think got left behind, which is the future of worth. And the distinction that I make when I think about these is really the difference between outer success and inner success. So outer success being, achievement, status, wealth, a lot of the things that I think that we sort of think about when we try to, framework out what we want from our lives. But inner success is I think meaning. It's joy, it's happiness. And I think both are important. I'm not here to be sort of one of these people that says you need to renounce your ambition, your achievements. I don't think that's the case at all. In fact, if anything, I think I'm pretty wildly ambitious myself. But I think that the misperception, and I think that this is proven through sort of science research, but I think also has been something that's been talked about for millennia, is that outer success will not lead you to inner success. right? You can have all of the status, you can have all the wealth, all the achievements, and it's not necessarily going to fill your cup in the way that we perceived it would. Dr. Tal Ben-Shahar at Harvard University calls this the arrival fallacy, which is this idea that we are going to reach this moment of arrival. We're going to sell our startup. We're going to, have enough money in the bank. We're going to have hit enough achievements that all of a sudden we're going to flip the switch and we're going to now feel happy, this lasting sense of joy.
I
Right?
feel joy. No, just kidding. It's
I
true.
mean, it's a-
Right? You
right.
never want enough. It's a humanist thing. You always want more. So
There is no moment of arrival.
Yep.
There is no
Yeah.
moment of arrival because every time we hit a target, the goalpost moves again. That's not to say that you should leave the game. That's not to say that the game is not worth it or that you should not have drive. But it's more about sort of flipping the flow of things rather than trying to live a life where you're trying to have outer success lead you to inner success. You can reverse the flow to having inner success lead you to outer success. And what that means on a practical level is really, really getting clear about what your essence is, about what it is you want to share with the world, and going after goals that are worthwhile, even if the metrics at the end don't prove out, right? So the things that
Yeah.
would be worthwhile, even if you don't hit the targets, because when you can reverse the flow in that way, what that does is it gives you, I think, something to live for each day. You're not waiting for a moment of arrival. You're actually getting joy from the journey, right? Which I know sounds a little bit cliche, but it's very true. But the other thing that happens, which sometimes isn't as clear to us, is that when you are enjoying the journey, right? And we hear this from so many of the people that you've interviewed here on the show, when you are enjoying the journey, the level of creativity, the level of energy, the level of collaboration that you bring to it becomes much, much higher. All the things that we
Yeah.
associate with success, you are bringing more into that pool. And that, counterintuitively sometimes actually increases your probability for outside success.
So it's so interesting that you say it, because you said something earlier where there's so many people today looking for new jobs. They're not happy where they are right now. They're all
Yeah.
and there are studies after studies when they go talk to those people and say, okay, why are you looking for a new job? You get some people to say, well, I want more money. Oh, I need to support like there's always the financial stuff that kind of comes up, right?
Yeah.
But there's this new undercurrent. I think I want to say there was an ADP study that said it was upwards of 45% of people they spoke with said it didn't feel right. Right? Like that the decision for them to look was more about a feeling than about financial, which I always found really interesting. But I read that, and then I work with this guy, that guy right there, who when Ray, I'm going to tattle on Ray for a second. When Ray reaches out to all of us who are analysts at Constellation, the first question that Ray will ask me on a one-on-one is, are you still having fun?
Yeah.
It's not, how's your work going? Are you getting everything done? What are you doing with our clients? Where you are with your business? Those are never the first questions. Ray's first question to me is always, are you still having fun? And so that's like, when you were talking, that's the first thing that came to my mind, which was like, not everyone gets to be in that scenario where they're given that space to say, hey, I am having fun, or I don't know what my Dharma is, or I do know what my Dharma is. So if someone is not in an enviable position, like I feel like I'm in a very blessed position where I get the space to explore that. If someone isn't in that position or don't feel like they're in that position right now, how do they go about the process of starting to actually say, like, I've got a Dharma and this is what it is?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, can I just say first, like, I love that. Like, I love what you just shared. And I don't know if you shared it with Ray before, but it's like it's witnessing a beautiful moment, because how rare is that? Right?
Yeah.
How rare is that two colleagues sort of share that about each other? It is special. And Ray, I think you should really, really take that one to heart.
I do. I know.
The person that we know influences our mental health even more than a doctor or a therapist is your boss. Right? For most of us, that's the number one person, right? And so what's interesting about that, and this gets to your question, Liz, is that as managers, as leaders, we learn a lot about how to manage time. We learn a lot about how to manage talent, but what we don't necessarily know how to manage is energy, right? And if you look at people who fizzle out in their lives and in their careers, very rarely are they running out of time or talent. What they're almost always running out of is energy, right? They just get too exhausted. I
Yeah.
think you see that a lot with entrepreneurs, right? We know people who
Mm.
could keep going. The idea is valid, right? And it needs some work, but it's valid. But ultimately, you just run out of steam, and this happens everywhere across all walks of life. In fact, I really do believe right now that we are in an exhaustion epidemic. And getting to your question, Liz, like I think that you were saying that it's more about a feeling than the finances. I think that feeling is really energy. I'm not getting
Mm.
energy. I'm not getting energy from what it is that I'm doing. And so I want to go find something that's going to give me that energetic boost. And your boss has so much to do with that, right? You asked about sort of what are some of the things that we can start to think about when it comes to our Dharma. The good news, I think, about Dharma is that I used to believe that it was this kind of like thing that you needed to go on an expedition for, like go climb the Himalayas,
Like an
backpack,
eat,
and
pray,
like
love moment. I
yeah,
gotta
yeah,
go.
in order to find your Dharma. And I did those things, I backpacked through Bhutan. I did all the, I lived in a village in Africa. But the thing is that I think that what I realized over time is that your Dharma is already inside of you. You don't need to go looking for it. It's less of a transformation and it's more of a revelation. It's kind of
Mm.
like Michelangelo would see a block of marble and he would say the sculpture is already inside.
Yes.
I simply just have to chisel away the layers that have gotten in its way. And your Dharma, this essence, is very much the same way. It has been something that has been a part of you for a very, very long time. But it's very easy for that to get hidden. It gets hidden under priorities. It gets hidden under
Mm.
circumstances. It gets hidden under other people's judgments, other people's expectations. And eventually it is far too simple for us to lose sight of who we are because we're caught in the day-to-day grind. There are some simple sort of questions, inquiries in the book that I think help us start to chisel away. And one of them that I think is really simple. I mean, there's many in the book, but one that's really simple is what are the brightest spots of your past week, of your past month? If you start to look at the elements of your day at a really deep level of like, what were the moments that actually brought me that energy, brought me that joy? And then what was it about those? What is it specifically about those that made me light up? And the reason that's important is because we're all subject to what neuroscientists call hedonic adaptation. Hedonic adaptation. And at a practical day-to-day level, what that means is that when something good happens in our life, we tend to celebrate it for a quick moment and then we move on to what's next and then what's next after that. So the point being that we reflect deeply on moments that don't go our way, but we don't reflect as deeply on moments that do go our way.
Oh, wow.
But it's the moments that do go our way, these bright spots, where actually they provide these little windows into the essence of who we are.
Yeah.
So the sort of practical habit here is taking little bits of time when something does give you that energetic feeling, right? And noticing it, sticking with it for just a little bit, or reflecting on it later on in your day or later on in your week and saying, what was it about that thing? Because over time, you'll start to see a pattern of where these bright spots occur, and you'll start to know where you want to double down your efforts. You want to know when you want to start expanding these bright spots. That might take you to a different job. It might. But oftentimes when I work with executives, when I work with teams and leaders that are thinking about shifting their careers, and we go into the bright spots, what they realize is actually possible for them to amplify the bright spots, even in the position that they're in right now. They don't need to leave their
Mm.
job. They don't need to leave their industry. They don't need to leave the workforce. They can start to amplify those right there where they are.
This is really insightful, and it feels like there's a lot of Eastern philosophy here, right? That's going in there, like the deep Eastern thinking, very, very spiritual, very, very philosophical based. But then you put a whole bunch of like Western takeaways into this mix, which is awesome, right? Because like it's hard to get into that. Like I have a very Buddhist family, right? And same thing, like there's a lot of teachings that come that way. But then I never get the Western science aspect of it. Like, hey, how does it work? What does it really come back to?
Meanwhile, I'm over here thinking everything you just said of like celebrate the bright spot, and you're like you're not going to double down into the like that. I'm like, should I have mentioned that I'm like Korean, and so they're like we're culturally we celebrate our ability to stay in the dark spot. Like
Yeah.
we're like everybody come here. We're all in the dark spot. Let's look
Yeah.
at all the things that went wrong. Like it's like literally ethnically part of the culture to like wallow in the Han of everything that's ever happened generationally.
Yeah. And look, to for Liz, I'm the same way. I mean, like I grew up in an Indian American immigrant family. We were very hard charging, like it was, but and I don't think the lesson here is to shame that part of ourselves. Right.
No.
And I think that's kind of where where things sort of go wrong when we talk about sort of like Buddhist or Eastern is like somehow the lesson, the takeaway can be you should not want things in your life, or you should not want to sort of have drive or be ambitious. And that's not it at all. But there are certain techniques that I think that we have brought into our lives, we've been conditioned to use, that may no longer be serving us as well, right? And the idea isn't to like, try to like shed those things, because it takes a while to do that. But the idea is to start leveling the playing field, right? To start leveling the playing field, to start thinking about, not just this idea of outer success, but thinking about inner success, what that really does mean to you. Because look, I mean, like I've spent the past 10 years studying some of the most extraordinary people on the planet, right? Across all walks of life. And I host a show now, which is sort of like Anthony Bourdain for leaders, right? And I travel around, I meet these great people.
Awesome.
And it's amazing. I love what I do. It's the greatest job in the world. But the thing that was unsurprising to both of you is that there was a lot of failure along the way. And a lot of that failure for a lot of these people who reach the top of their game is not necessarily written about. It's not talked about as much. When I asked them what it is that they learned about those failures, right? It's not, hey, I decided to come back with a different customer acquisition strategy this time around.
No.
It was I took a reflective look at myself. And I started to ask myself, what are the things that I want to do internally that are going to allow me to better succeed externally? And I think every single great leader goes through that sort of process. What do I want to start doing internally that is going to allow me to succeed externally? Because I think those are the habits that ultimately not only just pay off for ourselves, but they allow us to lead others in a way that make us memorable, and ultimately, I think, allow them to do their best work.
And one of the things that you talk about is slowing down to speed up. Let's go there for a little bit. What do you mean by that? Because it sounds counterintuitive at first.
Yeah. There was a great Olympic sprinter named Carl Lewis. And Carl Lewis, amazing in so many ways, but also unique. And one of the ways that he was unique is that he would always start in the back of the pack, but somehow he would end up finishing first place, which was very unusual.
Come from behind, dude.
They come from behind, and especially in sprinting, there's not a lot of time in the race. So usually if you start in the back, you're not going to finish first, but he did. And people didn't know why. So there was another coach that started this to really study his behaviors. And what he found is that Carl Lewis was constantly moving at 85%. He was starting at 85%. He was going at 85%. He was finishing at 85%. So while other sprinters were kind of going out the gate really, really quickly and losing steam, Carl Lewis would then whoosh by them one by one, and he would win the race. The 85% rule is something that then expanded. It started out in the sports world, it expanded, and you start hear actors and creatives talk about it. But then in business, all of a sudden you started to hear this 85% rule. It's almost been this kind of underground movement, and a very, very important one. But ultimately, what it comes down to is this: we have been conditioned to believe that maximum pressure leads to maximum results. Maximum internal pressure leads to maximum results. If you want something good, you better be intense. You better exert a lot of pressure and intensity. That has been debunked. It has been debunked not just by Carl Lewis as an anecdote, but it's been debunked by many studies. There was a study out of the City University in London that studied over 50,000 people across all different walks of life in the workforce, and found that extra intensity, extra pressure was actually not getting better results, and in fact could actually be a hindrance over time. The lesson here is I think the practical sort of lesson here is that, again, we've been conditioned that maximum pressure equals maximum results. When you're walking into a situation, ask yourself, how much intensity do I really need to bring to this moment? Like, I'm guessing, for the two of you with your one-on-ones, right? Like, they sound like delightful experiences. You talk about fun and you talk about play. I'm guessing Ray is not coming in and like with this like intense
Yeah.
sort of like,
Here's my
heart
30
sort of way.
page deck of how you
Yeah,
suck.
yeah,
Yeah, that's
right.
not.
I'm
Yeah, that's
guessing
not what we're doing.
that's not the vibe. That's not the vibe. And look, every once in a while, maybe 100% pressure intensity is called for.
Yeah.
But for the vast majority of situations, including work situations, 100% intensity, 100% effort, pressure is not quite necessary. And the leap of faith that I would ask anybody listening to take is, what if you lowered that a little bit before you walk into like you walk into a big moment, you walk into a presentation, you walk into a big team meeting? What if you ask yourself, how much pressure do I actually need to bring to this moment? And then dial it down to that level, right? If it's 80%, bring 80% in, and then allow 20% to just kind of roll, like allow it to flow, right? And just see what that does. And then ask yourself at the end of that meeting, did I get like fewer results, or did I perform in a way that was less compelling simply because I lowered my pressure? Testing that out yourself and coming to the insight that I think most people do come to, which is that sometimes lowering the pressure actually gets you better results, can be a very freeing thing, right? Because what it does is it gives us back some energy, right? It gives us back some energy. It lowers our anxiety. Studies say that it will lower sort of our rates of depression. It will increase our emotional resilience. There's a lot of benefit to just starting to loosening your grip a little bit and realizing that it's actually increasing your overall performance.
Yeah. It's so interesting that you say that, because I think a lot of times when people feel they aren't performing, like I'm not Carl Lewis, right? And I want to be Carl Lewis, and
Yeah.
like I feel like that's where I want to be. We focus on the skills, we focus on the training,
Yes.
right? Like, hey, Carl Lewis went to the gym. Carl Lewis had these shoes. He did this to his hair. Like, we focus on either the surface stuff, or we focus on like the tangible things we can articulate, like skills, things
Yeah.
I can work on. But you talk about skills that are just totally useless, right? Like things that you're just like super overrated, people. You probably just don't need them. Like, share a little bit about that, because I think while we
Yeah.
get so focused on the checklist of things,
Yeah.
I think your point, and what I love about what you're saying is that we're probably spending more of that energy, more of that currency that we should be keeping in reserve, so that we can be more creative, we can be more present, we can be at the right intensity, and we could be at the right energy. But we're
Yeah.
so focused on the checklist, I feel like.
I think that's such a great point, Liz. I mean, and to be honest, like I'm coming at this from the point of view of a student and not an expert, because I focused on the checklist. Like, my background was in product development, and I was in the backlog every day, baby. Right? Like, it was like what are we getting done? What's a P1? What's a P2? What's a P3? Like, that was my world. But as I went out and started to study great people, who, when I kind of shifted from entrepreneurship to writing, my sort of process was reaching out to all these people that I admired, Oscar-winning filmmakers, celebrity chefs, leaders of large iconic companies, and for some reason they started talking to me, and then one thing led to another, and it continued to sort of build from there. And now I've got sort of like these, hundreds, if not, low thousands numbers of data points from conversations with all these folks. I realized that the game-changing habits for them were not the surface level things. It was, you may have heard the quote that character is how we behave when nobody is watching.
Yep.
Right. And ultimately, if you think about what it is that drives somebody to the top of a game, whatever game that is that they're playing, it is character. Right. So we need to understand what it is that they are doing when nobody is watching. What are they doing internally in order to succeed externally? So let me give you an example, because that might be helpful, which is that, like, if you look at sort of, we talked about energy, how do great leaders keep their energy high? One of the things I realized is that it's not vacations. Vacations, while they're a wonderful instrument, like they're a wonderful thing, you can go way to connect with family. Everybody's going to Palm Desert next week, and he's going to connect with family and friends, see Sunny out there maybe. One of the things that's kind of interesting, though, that we know is that most people return and feel more stressed out 1 week after vacation than they did 1 week before vacation, right? And yet vacations have still, especially in the West, been this tool, this instrument for burnout. Again, wonderful things to do, but they're not very effective. What is much more effective is what I call in the book practicing rhythmic renewal, which is that you're not waiting for long breaks. You're not waiting for vacations in order to get moments of rest. When you look at high performers, they're taking frequent, focused breaks every single day. In fact, get this, the average high performer that we study is taking somewhere around 8 breaks every single day. 8.
I got to go,
Which,
Ray.
like, I know exactly.
Later.
Which like I
gotta
know
go.
sounds, I know it's like, but like the thing is, it sounds extraordinary, right? Given the world that we live in, it's so back to back to back. Like as soon as we click off of this one link, we may be clicking onto another link, right? As soon as we like finish up one meeting, it's like we're already late for the next one. But the model that I offer in the book is what I call the 55-5 model. 55-5. It kind of works like Pomodoro, if you're familiar with that. But
Yeah.
the idea is that for every 55 minutes of work, you're building in 5 minutes of focused, deliberate rest. 55-5. And if you can't do 5, do 4, do 3, do 2. But the key is that you're transitioning each hour with this idea of coming back to yourself. And if you're listening, I'm guessing like if you're watching this, you're probably the type of person that has a busy schedule. And you might be asking yourself like, look, I barely have enough time in my day. So how is this going to help me if I'm shrinking each hour in terms of productivity? But what the science tells us is that each of those 5 minutes is going to make the other 55 minutes far more effective, far more collaborative, far more creative, far more energetic.
That's awesome.
All of the qualities that we associate with success, right? So give it a shot whenever possible. It's not always possible. Whenever it's possible, build 5 minutes of rest into every hour. And what you might find is that you start to shift your mindset from this rest being a reward for what you have done and realize that rest is actually a preparation for what you are about to do.
Requirement. That's awesome.
No, it's amazing. So we're here with Suneel Gupta. More importantly, the writer, author of Everyday Dharma, 8 Essential Practices for Finding Success and Joy in Everything You Do. The book's endorsed by amazing folks, Reid Hoffman, Allison Levine, I think Daniel Pink, who I just saw a few days ago, Sarah Salzberg, Andy Dunn, and more. Book came out September 5th, 2023. Please get it on Amazon and where books are sold. So thank you so much for being on the show. We'll talk to you in a little bit. So
Great. Thanks so much.
Suneel.
Thank you, Liz.
Amazing.
So now I have a laundry list
recharge.
of things. No, I have a laundry list. It's like every time I end up #hosting for Vala, I end up with another thing on my list, right? So last time I got to join you, it was the great tip of instead of sending an agenda, send questions.
Yep.
Like phrase your agenda as questions so that everyone who comes to a meeting has answers to your questions rather than questions about your agenda. And so now I'm going to add on to that and then take 5 minutes out of that hour-long meeting because that's your 5 minutes in the 55-5 rule. That's awesome because that's what, no more hour-long agendas. It's going to be 55 minutes of questions and then 5 minutes for me. That's how we're working our day. I like it. This works. This works for me.
Cool. You found your Dharma. Very, very cool.
Let's hope. Gosh. Oh my gosh. Either that or I'm just going to go on my lifelong quest. I figure the Ganeshas that I all picked up from India earlier this year, they all sit on my bookshelf. So now I can just add the concept of Dharma to sit right there so that my Ganeshas who are supposed to help me write better are also doing that. That's just where we're going to go.
Well, we've got episode 344 next week. Hugo Sarrazin.
No, is it next week? Are you doing it next week? I don't think
November 24th. So 2 weeks from now, we're back on 12/1. Actually, no
you're
show.
You're off for Thanksgiving.
Happy
Thanksgiving, you two.
We're with some Dharma. So we're back on December 1st with Hugo Sarrazin, CPO of UKG, Scott Osmond and Jacqueline Lane, CEO and president of 100 Coaches, author of Becoming Coachable, and of course, Dr. Michelle R. King, author of How Work Works. Should be an action.
That's gonna be a good one.
Episode on future of work, employee experience, and of course, leadership. So yeah. So hey, if it's Friday, it's DisrupTV. Join us every 11 a.m. 2 p.m. Eastern, of course. And of course, we'll see you on December 1st. So have a great Thanksgiving holiday. Thank you, everybody.